Morning. Today you can start to look at rearranging formulae. Okay, so we can be able to rearrange formulae involving powers and roots. So when we say rearranging formulae, we mean make x the subject of the formula, i.e. rearrange it so it's x equals. So pause the video here, give yourself 6 minutes to copy down the title, date, learn objective and complete the starter. Once you're ready and completed, we'll go through the answers. Okay, so let's go through the first one. So I want to get this x on its own. So when I look at this, I see it's all divided by c. So I've got to start off by multiplying both sides by c. So if I multiply left-hand side by c, I get x plus b. If I multiply the right-hand side by c, I get ab. Or even ac. Okay, so now I want to get rid of the b. So I'm going to subtract the b from ac. So I've now got x on its own, so x equals ac minus b. I've made x the subject of the formula. Now the second one's slightly different because it's only the x that's divided by the v. So the first thing I need to get rid of is the b. So to get rid of the plus b, I subtract b from both sides. X over v equals a minus b. So x equals v a minus b. I've multiplied both sides by the v. Okay, so the third one is very similar to the first one. So I'm going to multiply by the z first of all. X minus y equals 3z, and then I'm going to add the y. Okay, so the last one, again, I want the x on its own, so I'm going to multiply by the 2g. X minus 3t equals 2gr, and then I'm going to add the 3t. So I've rearranged to make x the subject of each of those formulae. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So on this slide, what do we notice? We notice that we've got x squareds rather than x's. So how are we going to do the first one? So should we do the first one together, and then I'll give you 5 minutes to do the next 3. Okay, so x squared minus 3 equals y. So the first thing I want to get rid of is the minus 3. So x squared equals y plus 3. But I've got x squared and I want x on its own. So how do I undo a squaring? That's right, we square root. So we've now made x the subject of the formula. So pause the video, give yourself 5 minutes to do the next 3. Okay, and then when you're ready, we'll go through the answers. Okay, so let's go through these 3 answers. So let's subtract the 9 from both sides. X squared equals t minus 9. So x equals the square root of t minus 9. Subtract the h from both sides. X squared equals k minus h. X equals the square root of k minus h. Final one. The mistake people make straight away is by square rooting everything. That doesn't work. Square rooting this side of the equation and squaring this side of the equation are different to square rooting each term. So subtract the y squareds like you would normally, and then square root both sides. Okay. Square rooting of z squared minus y squared is not the same as z minus y, so be careful of that error. Okay, So correct any mistakes you've made, and then we can move on to the next slide. So very similar questions, but we've got some fractions involved. Okay, so pause the video, give yourself a good 10-12 minutes to answer these questions, and then we will go through the answers. Okay, take your time, think about what you're doing at each stage. Okay, so let's go through these answers. So first thing I want to get rid of is the divide by 3. So x squared equals 3y. And now I can square root both sides. Next one, first thing I want to get rid of is this divide by 5. So x squared equals 5 lots of z plus 7. I've multiplied both sides by 5. And now I can square root both sides. Okay, so the third one's slightly different. So I've got x squared divided by 6 minus 8 equals y. So the first thing I want to eliminate is the minus 8. I'm going to add that to the other side. So x squared over 6 equals y plus 8. So x squared equals 6 lots of y plus 8. So x equals the square root of 6 lots of y plus 8. Now the third one, the fourth one looks really complicated, but it's no more complicated than the last one. So let's multiply by 5. So I'll write this one down here. 2x squared plus 6a equals 45. Okay, now let's get rid of the 6a. Now I've got 2x squared this time, so first of all I'm going to divide by 2. And then I need to square root both sides. Okay, so make sure you've done any corrections you need to for those first 4 questions. And now we'll do the next 4. So I've got 3x squared equals y. So let's divide both sides by 3 and then square root both sides. Divide both sides by 5 and then square root both sides. Divide both sides by 7. Okay, so the last one, slightly different, so I'll give myself a little bit more room. So I want to eliminate this minus h, so I'm going to add h to this side. Fx squared equals g plus h. Then I want to divide by my f. X squared equals g plus h divided by f. So x will equal the square root of g plus h divided by f. Okay, make sure any corrections that need to be done are done, and then we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so these questions now have square roots involved. So let's do the first one as an example, and then you can try the next 3 on your own. So the square root of x plus a equals b. So I want to eliminate the a first. So square root of x equals b minus a. Now I want to undo the square rooting, so I'm going to square both sides. B minus a all squared. You don't need to expand the bracket. We can just leave the answer as is. Okay, so let's give yourselves 5 minutes to do the next 3 questions. Pause the video here. So the answer to the next one, square root of x plus a equals b. So here I've got to eliminate the square root symbol first. So x plus a equals b squared. So x equals b squared minus a. Next one, square root of x minus a equals b. Be careful here, these look very similar, but the a isn't inside the square root symbol. So square root of x equals a plus b. Me being sad has to write it alphabetically. B plus a is equally correct. X equals a plus b all squared. And the final one, square root of x minus a equals b. X minus a equals b squared. X equals b squared plus a. Okay, so make sure any corrections are completed. Okay, now we can move on to the final slide. Okay, so let's have a think about these. Think about where the square root symbol is, okay, and which you need to undo first. So pause the video here, give yourself 6 minutes to answer these, and then we'll go through the answers. Okay, so let's start with the first one. How are we going to eliminate the divide by p? Let's multiply both sides by p. And then we want to square pq all squared. Make sure you put that in the bracket, otherwise it will just be p multiplied by q squared. Okay? So let's eliminate the square root first, because everything in the fraction is square rooted. So equals q squared. So x equals pq squared. Notice the difference between these two. This one says pq all squared. This one says p multiplied by q squared. Third one, root x equals 3y. So x equals 3y all squared, which could be written as x equals 9y squared if you wanted to. But this answer here is equally correct. And the last one, x over y, so x over 3 equals y squared, x equals 3y squared. Notice the difference between these two. Okay, well done today, guys, and I'll speak to you this afternoon.